Okay,
I was
so
trying to sit up
everybody.
a little straighter when the recording starts.
Welcome everybody to this week's weekly sync. Let's start with the demos. So the teams are Christina and Terry and Deb and Victoria. So who wants to start first?
We could go first. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Our feature is quite small, so I was thinking we could just start first. Okay, I'm going to 1 second. Okay, I'm going to have to share my screen very quickly. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So we had a very tiny task this week. So our task here was to basically display a welcoming prompt for a user. So basically what we're trying to do is that we know that once a user clicks into their list or maybe creates a new list or something, they don't have anything in the list. So we want to add a very tiny thing, maybe like a button that would just tell them that their list is empty and that they should go ahead and add their first item. So what we tried to do was that if the list is empty, the list view will show that prompt like, oh, hey, you have nothing on your list and you should probably add something. But if the list has items, then we do not show that prompt at all. And we just show the items. I'd like to show a demo here very quickly. So here, there's nothing in local storage, I presume. Okay, great. So there's nothing here. If I go here, I should see the behavior that we worked on. 1 second, I'm going to drag this down. Okay, yeah. So if I create a new list here, I come automatically to the list view and I have absolutely nothing. So the page says, oh, you don't have anything here, add an item. So I go here and I add some lip gloss that I'll be buying soon. And if I go back to the list, then that prompt is gone and it works pretty fine. If I add something else, maybe bread for tomorrow, and I can view the list here and I try to filter, it works just fine. It doesn't run error anymore like it did when I first submitted this a couple of days ago. So yeah, that's it. If I remove our token again and I go right back to what we had before, the prompt comes back because there's nothing on the list. So yeah, super tiny feature, but hopefully it works fine. So nice. Yeah, that's our demo.
Okay, so great job. I'm not sure. By the way, now it works properly, and you've
yeah.
Peter is also joining. Cool. I wasn't sure that he came back from holidays. Hey, Peter. Hello.
Hi.
Just got here in time for the demos.
Hi. Hey, Peter. We're all going to share the code too. Can you show the code for the feature?
Yes. I don't know, Victoria. Do you want to take a stab at that or? Okay.
Sorry, I'm actually struggling with my internet.
Oh,
Just go ahead and I go my internet.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's fine.
I can't hear you very well, Victoria. I'm not sure about everyone else.
I think she's having internet issues, so I'm just going to go ahead and quickly run through that very quickly. So I'll share my screen again. You would think I use Zoom every day. Okay. So this is what we have. So basically what we try to do is to look at what we have in the data. So if there's anything inside of that, then we return the list and the filter form. So if there's anything inside of here in the array, that means that somebody has added stuff to their list. So we basically just conditionally render that here. But if there's nothing in that list, then we added a tiny component that I'm just going to show here. So this is the tiny button component. So we just created a separate reusable one, and then we added it right here. So that's where the add item, your stuff is empty comes from. Yeah. Before we tried to do this by, I think we were using something like a filtered list items. If there's nothing inside and it wasn't quite working, it broke, and Gopal pointed that out. So we had to work on that pretty fast today. So everything works great now. Yeah, that's all.
But
Nice.
it's always, you need to pay attention for the data, because this, as you said, at first glance, it looks like a good idea to check out the filtered list, the items. And so the data is the array that contains the items, because I wrote you a message in Slack and I didn't remember. I thought data was an object that contained another array. So my comment was wrong. Your way is right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, I still figured it out because you mentioned data anyway. So that was very useful for me. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And
Nice work.
Yeah, great job. What I don't remember is that if you don't have a list at all, if you should display the add item, or this is, you fix this later. Andrew, I don't remember the issues, the
Exception
criteria.
spiral? Okay, yes. I can just share that.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense to be able to see the add item prompt when you don't have a list at all, but I'm not sure if this is supposed to be fixed in common issues. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can remember as well, but I think it's something that we can probably tie up by the time the project is finishing up itself. Yeah.
Okay, awesome, super.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep,
Thank
great.
you.
Handled this in a great way. Anybody have any
well
questions, comments?
Not you, Terry.
No.
I see you smiling.
Yeah, this issue is it's very simple compared to the other one. So yeah, this team on all the teams, the pair that got this issue kind of got off easy this week. But nice job, really nicely explained as well. Like you clearly thoroughly understand it. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
I guess I think, Andrew, you haven't watched any other demos. Generally, they give really great demos.
Oh yeah. Oh nice.
Every time
yeah.
I like watching their demos and seeing them walk through the code.
That's great.
Thank you very much. So the next team, Christina and Terry.
Hi everyone. So what we worked on this week was like marking the check items. Like we have to check a checkbox, and the checkbox updates the information on the Firestore database. So I'll just share my screen of the demo and show you what we did. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let me move this. I can really see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So this is the what we worked on for this past week. So the essence of this is that whenever users come to the list page, it is required for them to be able to check this item. And once you check this item, it tells you if you've purchased something, and it updates the information on the Firestore database. So once you click on this item here, it's either, because naturally this item it will show you that this item is false initially once someone has not purchased anything. So if you click on it and I open my Firestore and I open the Firestore database, I have to check. Just give me a moment. So once I scroll to the specific list token and I check the specified item that I've already checked on my front end, it shows me that this item is checked to be true, because initially it was set to be false. But once you check it and it tells you right now, because it syncs automatically, once you click on the front end, it's automatically like goes to the back end to update the information. And once we've done that, we had to connect the Firebase file to the front end so that we could get the update item, because we had to use the function doc and update doc, which was essentially for checking the list ID, which is a token, comparing the list token, because from the first task that the other team did was that the list token automatically like updates the information and gets all the items from the list. And once you check each of these items, it just syncs automatically with both the front end and the back end. And after we did that, we had to check out that I can't go back to my screen. So 1 minute. So once we have done that, it just reads that this item. So the other task we were trying to figure out was that so once a user checks this item, for the next 24 hours, the item would automatically like check the item would automatically like check the box off, because normally what Goffo suggested was that once an item has been checked here, it's automatically like makes this item inactive so that no user will be able to like uncheck this item by themselves till the next 24 hours. So that was just like the demo of all the work that I and Christina did. But what we would actually like do we would wait to the end of the project to actually like make sure that once the user checks this item, it makes this buy shawarma inactive for the next 24 hours till the item unchecks itself. So yeah, but that will be later on, because I don't have the brain power to actually like work on the task right now, because I'm already like tired of what we did throughout the whole week. So I'll give it to Christina to share with us the code.
Yeah, we coded late day and night, I have to say. It has been a challenging one, but it was like we went through some frustrations, but in the end we managed. So I'm really happy to have worked on this with Terry. And now I will share my screen. Can you see my screen, guys?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, basically we had 4 acceptance criteria or 4 different tasks. The first one was creating a checkbox with a semantic label on the list item component that you can see here. And here we added an event handler. The next step was making sure that by checking off an item, the date last purchase and total purchases properties get updated on Firestore. And to do that, we work on the Firebase file. And first of all, what we did was actually importing some functions, very important functions that we needed, like the .1 and the update doc. And afterwards, we created the update item function you can see here. That takes actually 3 properties: the list ID that Terry mentioned before, which is the users list token, the doc ID, and the item data. And this updates item function sends updates to the Firestore database every time an item has been checked or unchecked, as Terry also mentioned before. And afterwards, we go back to the list item component where we imported actually this function that we need to use here. And we need to update the item properties, the date last purchase and total purchase. So to do that, we work again on the list component, and instead of adding all properties that we need here, what we did was adding the items property and just created like destructure it here with all properties so that we don't need to add manually one by one. All of them. And afterwards, we work on the handle checkbox function that helps basically handling what the user does on the user interface, and we checking the box, and it runs a condition where it increases the number of purchases by 1 every time the user clicks on the checkbox, so that you do know, like the as Terry mentioned before and show on the Firebase interface, by default the checkbox is false, and then when the user clicks on the checkbox it becomes true, so it runs all this this part of the code and then updates the purchases. And yeah, and then the last criteria was about making the checkbox uncheck after automatically after 24 hours, so that the user can buy again. And in order to do that, we created another condition inside the list item function. And first of all, we took the current data from the data last purchase, and sorry, the current date from the date last purchase, as you can see here. And we also have it here. And the thing is that with this function, we get the whole day. So we get the day, the month, the year, and but we only need the time. So what we did was taking just the time here. And the challenge is that we get everything into milliseconds. So we had to convert it into seconds. And we did the same with the date last purchase. We took it into seconds. We actually here made a mistake, and we had like at some point one date, one current time in milliseconds, and the other one in seconds. So thank you, Golfo, for the feedback. We were getting a bit confused with so many different dates. And yeah, so to get the time, the elapsed time, so we basically subtracted both variables created before, and in the end, we also created another variable with the amount of seconds that a day has. And here is actually where we were a bit stuck, because what this makes is it allows the user to check and uncheck the box. And this is where we need to make some corrections afterwards. But basically, almost everything works as it should. So we can check the acceptance criteria. We just need to correct the last one. And yeah, you already saw the functionality. So that's it. If you have any questions, just shoot.
Yeah, this would be a good time to document what your understanding of what would need to happen when the user unchecks, because a few weeks will go by and then maybe you'll come back to this issue and it might be kind of fuzzy, because a lot of things are going to happen between now and then. So another team that I saw this weekend did a very similar thing, and they left sort of a to-do comment right next to the code that needs to change in order to handle that unchecking behavior. So that might be one way, or to create an issue in GitHub or something where you document how you want to approach it. And then the other thing is, so if you scroll up, that same team actually did the same thing, where they have this current time outside of any of the functions. And
okay.
I actually don't know how React behaves here. I don't know when it's going to actually run that. If it's going to run when the app loads, is it going to run every time the view loads? That current time might not be what you expect it to be, because it could, if, like, say they load the app, current time gets populated, and then the app sits there in their browser for a couple of days. That current time might not ever get updated. Does that make sense? So you might want to move that to somewhere, kind of like thinking about it sort of semantically, of like, what does it represent? Like, what do we need it to be at different points where it's used, right? So you may want it to be right next to where you're calculating, should the thing be checked or not, because that'll be the most accurate current time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
thank
that's
you.
my feedback.
Thank you for the feedback. Yeah.
Golfo or Peter, do you happen to know like when that would actually run?
No, but I missed this in my code review. I mean, definitely shouldn't be there, because I guess it will run, in the beginning when you load it.
I think so, yeah. It might be when every time the view loads, maybe, but it's probably something that gets compiled into the app, right?
Yeah, but maybe it's better to, at least be in the function, in the list item function or something. But
Yeah,
I can look.
yeah.
I can look into this and afterwards in Slack, because now I'm very curious. I also
I know, yeah, me too.
And
But really nice explanation. This is a complicated issue, and
It was.
yeah.
So I kind of have a question. So so if you're declaring a variable, must it necessarily be in the function of the must it necessarily be in the function? Let's say if I just declare a variable that is outside the function, I believe it's still going to work regardless of whether the app runs initially when it loads or
Yeah,
refreshes.
so a good example is line 16, right? Like that's a constant that's never going to change. So 1 day in seconds, that could actually be outside of any of the functions, because it's not, it's going to be initialized or whatever the actual word is once, and then you're going to use it. So the current time it's going to be populated with whatever the current time is at the time that, that piece of code is evaluated, but not every time that the function runs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Like if it's inside the function, when the function runs, then that'll get populated with whatever the current time is at that time. So that's the difference there. So yeah, it's totally valid to have stuff outside the functions, but only if you're not expecting it to be updated at the time that the function is invoked. That makes sense. Cool.
Thank you very much for showing us the code. And I don't know, can you please show us if, so try to change the value in Firestore and show us if it actually gets unchecked. And I also agree with Andrew that maybe it's a nice idea to create an issue for the problem you didn't solve. Because if you rest a bit, I'm sure it will come easily to you, because you already have the functionality that calculates whether 24 hours have passed. So if you rest a bit, you will think, okay, since I calculate that, it's easy to set the attribute to disabled in the button, in the checkbox.
Yeah, the tricky part about the unchecking, and it's why it's not an acceptance criteria, is you actually in a future issue, there's an algorithm that's going to need to know, how long it's been since the last purchase. So when you uncheck it, you need to set it back to the previous value, so you don't lose that information. So just to share like what the other team, that the way that they're thinking of handling it is to make that, instead of a single value, make it an array. And the array, okay, this is going to go a little more into the weeds but like when I made this app originally, I was trying to find a way to do this where I didn't have to store an entire history of all the purchases in order to calculate the next purchase. So and that's because I didn't want the data to grow and grow over time. Like if I use the app for years or something, like the data is going to get really big, it's going to slow the app down. So I wanted it to be a single value. So what in order to avoid keeping in the entire history, what you really all you really need are two values. You need the previous date and the current date. So then you could set it back to that previous one. You have that in the history, but you just need an array of two values basically, instead of one value there if you want to implement that. So that'll be a little breadcrumb for you to follow to kind of figure that out. Terry, you have your hand up.
Okay, yeah. So my initial thought was like how to uncheck the box after 24 hours was I was trying to figure out using the use effect hook and probably using the set timeout function or method, so that once it's actually past 24 hours, it would automatically uncheck itself using the set timeout method. That was one method I was thinking of, but I put it in the chat, but I had to delete the message because I was like, I didn't get Golfo's suggestion on that idea, but I don't know if that works. I don't know. I just want to get some thoughts.
Yeah, a set timeout is it's basically saying invoke this code at this, this amount of time from now, right? So if you use a set timeout and the user keeps the app open, then that'll run. But if they reload the app or they close the app or something, that set timeout might not ever run. So another way to handle that might be this isn't probably actually optimal, but would be just have a set interval. So it's sort of every minute or something, it's checking to see if the 24 hours has passed and then go through and uncheck things. So that might be one way. Yeah, it's interesting to me that all 4 teams this weekend have an is checked value in the database, which I don't think that's actually necessary. Like, I think you could calculate whether it's checked just at the time when you're rendering the list, you know, and that's kind of a principle in React, is to not store things that you don't need to store, or maybe not just in React, but, you know, in, you know, certain style of programming, because you have all the information you need to know whether it should be checked by just having the last date and the current time, the current date, and that tells you whether it should be checked or not. So that, anyway, that's a consideration too, is like, could you get rid of that in the database? And then you don't have 2 sources of truth as to whether or not the item should be checked. But I don't know, I need to go back and look at the acceptance criteria. Maybe it specifies an is checked property or something.
What I wanted to add is that in sort of real app, usually this kind of stuff of checking if 24 hours have passed or not is done on the server side. There it's much more reliable than doing it on the front end. But here, because we're working on the front end, we try to do it on the front end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Question. I'm a bit confused. I wasn't in the issue from the last week, so. But what's the is checked flag? What it is supposed to do? I don't really get exactly what's trying to do. Can someone explain? Terry? Go. You are both
Terry,
muted.
you're muted. Yeah, both of you. Yeah.
Christina, I don't take it.
I
You
can
don't take
share.
it, the question.
What is the is check supposed to do?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what it's supposed to do, because I think most of the discussion was around is checked and how to uncheck, right?
Yeah, like, first of all, so by default, the behavior should be you're sharing. Thank you. Yeah, so our issue is with the third criteria, that whenever the user checks the box after 24 hours, it should be unchecked. And this is what we were working on, and we couldn't really manage.
So for my understanding of what the check is particularly doing is that, since this is a smart shopping app, the essence of that is checked is that once the time have elapsed, 24 hours, is like it returns back to the default and tells the user if you want to get that item again. So something of that nature. So that is what the is checked is actually like doing. So if something just like a to-do list, once an item has been completed, it checks and you can actually like revert back to the initial state if you want to continue on the task or something like that. I don't know if I explained it well, but I think that's what.
So you're using is checked from the database in order to set the state of the checkboxes. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, but I think like Andrew said, having that in the database may not be that optimal. So
yeah, because you could calculate whether it should be checked or not when you read through all the date values, and just, you know, kind of do it sort of at render time or something, instead of trying to store that value, because then you have to keep that value up to date. And so the application needs to be aware of the dates and then maybe update that value. It's like, it probably would cause unnecessary calls to the database and over the network and stuff.
Yeah, I just think we need to reconsider and maybe reevaluate some of the maybe criteria on the GitHub issues, and probably maybe at the end of the project we try to work on it, and just like maybe all of us just try to look at it and try to debug one or two things happening.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually, since I've been now to all 4 teams demos this week, I'm gonna start a thread in the mentors channel about tidying up this issue a little bit. So I saw the same things, like you know, the things you did are exactly what some of the other teams did. So, and everybody had the is check flag and stuff. So there's something there that probably needs to be, kind of encoded in the issue about, just kind of, or maybe like if the hint, like coaching notes for the mentors or something, where you can just like say like, oh, you don't need a flag, like you can calculate it or something, like just so we, yeah, I mean, it's not a problem. It's a little bit of like tech debt now or something, so if we could avoid you having to like now go back and like having to work on this issue again and like fix these things, like that's probably in our interest. So cool.
I mean, the reason I think that all the teams had the is check values, I'm checking the code right now in the Firebase JS file, and in add doc, it already has is checked to false. So the data properties are already there by default. So
all right, that makes sense. I was wondering why, because it was all spelled the same case, like every team had it. I was like, it must have been already in there somewhere. So y'all didn't do anything wrong. You're like, oh, I don't know, it's there, I guess we should use it. So I think we need to update the template. It didn't used to be in there. This is like the version 2.0 of the project.
Okay,
so
awesome, and maybe this is something nice to discuss in our last retro or this retro, to discuss among us that what we would like to be better in the acceptance criteria.
Or and not or, but and how the team wants to kind of deal with this going forward. Like it could be something you just kind of like it, it's not optimal, but you live with it. It could be something where you make an issue and you go back and refactor. Like you have, the team should probably decide like how you want to tackle it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
And great job, folks, Christine and Terry, on the issue.
Well done.
Yeah, this was a very challenging one. I think it's one of the most challenging ones from all of them. And you did a great job. And I think I owe all of you code reviews, because I did some code reviews and you fixed stuff and I need to check it again. So I'll do a code review after we finish. And as I said on Slack, you need to be extra careful with merging, because you both worked on the same stuff, and it would be awesome if one person from each team could coordinate and you would come together and merge it together. So you'll make sure that none of your changes get lost or overwritten by mistake. That would be really great.
Good point.
And,
cool. I'm going to drop, but thank you so much. Really nice job on your demos. I'll be back in the last week just to see the final product. But in the meantime, if we haven't connected on LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff, let's do that. The whole point of this is to get you all jobs, so I can be pretty helpful over there sometimes. I know a lot of people. So take care, everybody.
Great,
good
thank
work.
you.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
See you later.
Bye.
See you. And now, Peter, if you want, you can present us the issues.
Okay. Give me a moment. Okay, can you see my screen or hear me? Yep.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So the first issue, I think issue 9 and 10 for the coming week. And issue 9 says users shouldn't be able to add an empty item to the list or add the same item twice. If they try to do this, you should show them an error message that explains the problem. And that should also prevent them from having a lot of duplicated items on their shopping list. And the acceptance criteria says you should show an error message if the user tries to submit an empty item. Also show an error message if the user tries to submit a new item that is identical with something that is already on the list. For example, if the list contains apples and the users try to add apples again, it should show an error. Also, show an error if the user tries to submit items that are identical, either with irrespective of the casing. So if you have apples in the list and you add apples with capital letters or one capital letter or with a comma or full stop, it should also show an error message. And then also the user's original inputs, if all is after the validation and it's correct, should be saved to the database. And it says there are also a couple ways to approach the task. So if you have any questions regarding the different way you want to approach it, you can also tag the mentors in the channel. Any question on this issue?
I have a clarification to make. So, I mean, criteria number 2 is super clear that if it's exactly the same, you shouldn't be able to add it. The third criteria is that it means if you already have in the database, like an item, for example, let's say I write apples with a capital letter, and then I try to search it with a small letter, then it shouldn't add the new one. And I think what the fourth is a bit confusing, at least for me when I first read it, but it means that the item should be saved in the database in the original way. So if I write apples with a capital letter, it should save it as capital and display it as capital whenever you see it. And it shouldn't change when I try to search for it. So it the first time you enter it, it gets saved and never changes.
Wow. That would be a bit like different, because I know we worked on, you see, I and Debbie about the filter, because we had to turn everything to lowercase. Would that mean we have to now rewrite that code that handle that specific part of the criteria for that, maybe with 2?
Yep, well, according to this, I guess, I mean, the way I would, what do you call it? I would read this criteria is that you should save the item exactly as the user entered it into the database, but on the front end, on the display, you can show it normalized, but you shouldn't change it in the database.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what I understand.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know what you mean now. So the thing is, once an item is being like, no matter the casing and everything, that should be saved. But when you're like rendering the list, you cannot convert them to either lowercase or just maybe the first one can be a title case. And okay, yeah, I understand.
I mean, this is 2 ways. There are 2 ways to think about this. That on one hand, maybe the user, they wrote the item with a capital letter or not, or with a comma, because they really wanted to write it like this. So you should display it exactly like this back in the app. Or you can approach this in another way, that the user made a mistake when they didn't normalize the capital letters and the punctuation and stuff. And when you display it back to them, you can fix this. So there are 2 ways to think about it. I mean, I think it's acceptable to, do either, but to do it consciously and really think about, so you're displaying the first letter and title case to make it look nicer for the user. And if you do it for that, okay, and you know why you're doing it, or you decide to display it exactly the way the user wrote it, because maybe that's the way they wanted it, that's also okay. I mean, I would think of this in 2 ways.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I have to come in. So for most times, the like for whether we're like apps or maybe website that people have used. So normally, no matter the casing, when you're fetching the item back to the front end, it updates the information based on the like it returns it in the normal casing. So I don't think it would be appropriate for people to actually like type no matter like both lower and upper casing. And when you're fetching it, it looks abnormal on the front end. So I just believe that everything should be either lowercase or maybe uppercase, depending on how we want to approach it. I don't know. That's just my thinking.
Yep, I mean, that's also right. I mean, for me, it makes sense that you will originally save it, you know, all in lowercase or stuff. And when the user tries to filter there, you compare it and convert accordingly. So, I mean, yeah, I guess talking about this, I guess you don't need to change what you did originally, or you or the other team if you work on it, but you can take either approach. But yeah, as you said, now that you explained it, I think yep, it's better to just leave it the way you have it. But not you know, update the item when somebody searches. Just not do that.
The way you have it at the moment is you turn it to lowercase before saving, right?
Yeah, I think so. But we have to like check and everything. But if any team, like I don't know if I'm working on it, but if we encounter any issue, we'll definitely like drop it on the Slack and everything. So yeah, until then, we'll work on it.
Awesome.
Any further questions? Okay, so the next issue, which might be maybe more trickier than the other one because you still have to deal with time, I think, like you did this week. So as an item, I want my estimated next purchase date to be computed at the time the purchase is recorded in the database, so the app can learn how often I buy different items. So, and the summary, in order to advise users about when to purchase things, the app needs to be able to calculate that guess needs to be able to calculate guess and store it. The app needs to be able to calculate that guess and store it a future date. The calculate estimate function from the shopping list utils module will help you to know how many days in the future a purchase should happen. In order to use calculate estimate function, you need to know how many days have passed since the time the item was last purchased. And the acceptance criteria, the first one, get this between function is exported from the utils as date.js file and imported in the firebase.js file. The function takes two JavaScript dates and return the number of days that have passed between them. When the second criteria, when the user purchases an item, the item's date next purchase property is calculated using the calculate estimate function and saved to the Firestore database. Date next purchase is saved as a date and not a number. Some notes. Working with Firestore, Firestore returns dates as special objects called timestamps. You will need to convert timestamp to a JavaScript date in order to work with it and complete the feature. But the timestamp object has a toDate function, and you can see more about it in the Firestore documentation. Comparing and manipulating JavaScript data is tricky, and there's a link to MDN docs, but all date objects have a getTime method that returns a representation of that state in milliseconds, which you could also use. Calculating the next purchase date. The shopping list utils module should already be installed in the project, and with the calculate estimate function. The function accepts 3 arguments: previous estimates, which is the last estimated purchase interval; days since last purchase, which holds the number of days that have elapsed between the last purchase date and now. You will need to figure out how to calculate that argument. And the total purchase, which holds the total number of purchases made for that item. Given that information, calculate estimate returns a whole number, indicating the number of days until the user is likely to make their next purchase. Do you want to add anything to this issue, Godfrey?
I think they can go a bit up to the criteria. Okay, so the first criteria is very straightforward. It says that you need to create this function in the dates.js file, export it and import it in Firebase. And it takes 2 dates and displays the number of days and returns the number of days. So here you have to be careful, because maybe you are, when you compare the dates, they might be timestamps or whatever, but you need to pass that back as days. And so the result should be 5 days have passed, not something like 1,000 milliseconds or a date object or whatever. So there you will need to do any conversions, stuff like that. And I advise that you test this many times with different values, so you can ensure it works. And about the date next purchase, you can see that this calculate estimate function is coming from a library. So you don't need to actually implement this, just pass the correct variables. And that you need to store date next purchase as a date, like it's explained down in the notes. But yeah, of course, if you have any questions, I think for this issue, questions will come up as you're working on it. So maybe now you understand it, or maybe you have questions, but I'm very sure that some questions might come up when you start working on it. So please ask us.
Any question from the team?
No questions. I think I prefer to just struggle along and yell for help when I have no other solution, I guess. The questions will come, I'm sure.
So which team would like to pick?
I'll go with 9.
Oh, please. Christina was
I'll go
faster.
with 9.
Nope.
I was
I'm gonna have to
faster.
say no to that. But no, she put it in the chat like a minute ago, a whole
Okay,
minute.
I didn't see that.
This is getting crazy.
I'm sorry, I never chose till now. It's my first time.
You're good at this, Christina.
Okay, so Christina and Debbie for 9.
Terry is not happy with that.
I'm so sorry about Terry, because I can imagine how he feels. We are kind of exhausted from last week.
He sounds really tired. He's like, oh God, not again.
Oh, wow.
The next time you will be 3 days in advance saying, I want this issue.
But I think it will be fun, for Terry to work on dates combinations again. Right, Terry?
Man, I don't even know what to say. Well, I don't know. Let's see. And Debbie and Christina will help us since they are more experienced, and Victoria to come and help me, help everybody in the team. Because this task is long.
Yeah, like if we are done on time, I offer myself to help you if you need it. No worries.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you struggle too much, you can also ping in the channel, or maybe you have specific issues, just ping some of the authors and mentors in the channel. Date stuff out is always tricky, even for advanced engineers. It's always a very tricky subject. So
Yep.
no worries.
Usually that's why we use libraries and stuff like that, and we don't do it directly.
Ah, really? Okay.
It even gets much harder if you work with an app where you have to work with different time zones. Say someone is in Berlin, someone is in Nigeria, and how you store the dates, where you display it, it's very, and also with like the way this timing change. I still remember one issue with one of my previous job where we had some bugs because of dates. Some dates it will show something accurate, later it will show something very different, just because of how the dates are stored and how you calculate this Unix time and all the other things related to it, and it can get very confusing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I mean, don't feel bad because, for example, yesterday time changed here. I mean, today morning it was a daylight saving, and in my Google Calendar, it showed the time for a weekly sync at the same time, although it should have been 1 hour earlier. But I think for the people in Africa, it also showed the same time, although now it's super confusing, and we have to decide about the meeting again for the times. So even the folks at Google still don't get this right. So don't feel.
Yeah, but I think you can pull through. So feel free to collaborate and ask in the channel, and we try to help.
Okay, and thank you very much. So we are a bit over time. I see that now we have a retro, and I see that people have already wrote some things, but I will still allow, because I think not everybody has written stuff. I will still leave 10 minutes for us to write some more things if we want in the retro board. And I pasted the link on Slack, but I will also paste it here. Just a second, in case you don't remember. And I'll just quickly explain the process again. So we want to write things, we want to write thank you to the people that helped us or did something great. We want to write what went right, what went wrong, and what we can do the next times to improve things. So count 10 minutes and we'll come back and discuss. Okay, so the time is up. Does anybody need any more time to write something?
I'm fine on my side.
Okay, cool. And I saw Peter didn't write stuff in what went well, but I mean, that makes sense because he wasn't here the past week, so he probably doesn't have anything to write.
I just wrote 2 kudos.
Yep, okay, cool. And we can start then, I guess, and start with kudos, Christina.
Yeah, I wanted first of all to thank Peter because I think it was 2 weeks ago we had a very nice office hours with him, and he went calmly with us through all the code review process and also how to write a better pull request. So he gave us a lot of nice suggestions and show us everything on the GitHub interface. So, thank you for that to help us improve everything on the process. Also, thank you to Golfo for the whole week, because actually we have been spamming you quite a lot on Slack and on several calls. So thank you for making some time for us, for your patience, and for unblocking us on all our struggles. And yeah, also thank you to Patrick for the pair programming session. It was also very interesting.
Thank you, Christina. My turn. So, as we said, thanks to Peter for his great office hours and giving clarity on the code review process. Because I mean, we really struggled with this, and Peter recognized the problem and decided to help out with this. And I think it worked because this week we did a lot better than the past week. Also, Patrick, thank you, Patrick, for helping the team with code reviews. And also, thanks to the people who joined my office hours, and we did some nice troubleshooting. And congrats to everybody in the team for coordinating together and working to solve the issues for each week, I want to say that. Next is Debbie.
Yeah, so I did not really have a lot to say this week, but I wanted to thank Golfo for pointing Victor and I in the right direction. We hit a snag with our tiny issue, and it was really appreciated. I also wanted to give big kudos to Christina and Terry for pushing through with a very, very tough issue this week and creating something really solid out of that. I'm super proud of you guys. I'm sure it was not easy at all, but I just want to appreciate you folks for just pushing through. And yeah, I think the other thing I wanted to mention, what went well, I didn't really have anything to add because this week was pretty normal for me. But with what could be improved, I would say that as Collabis, we could try to ask for faster, we could try to ask for code reviews faster. I got a bit stuck this week because work was crazy and I had a couple of things to do, and it really just delayed me. I feel like we could have finished our issue on Wednesday or something. So this is something that I would love to work on to myself. So I would like to take a bit more responsibility on that end and just reach out quicker and not dilly-dally. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Thank you, Debbie. And I mean, this for the code reviews, we all need some more practice and to be faster. Next is Terry for the kudos column.
Okay, so for me, my appreciation goes to Patrick and Peter. I don't know if Peter had a weekly sync. I don't know whether it was previous or actually this week, but my kudos goes to both of them for the weekly sync meeting, and which has been helpful because we need this thing once in a while so that we can be reminded of what the best practices. That's when once we start working on other big projects and every other thing. Also to Golfo, I know she has been constantly helping everybody, the whole team, and which I know she spares a lot of her own time to give us suggestion and also answer the team's question, which which is not taken for granted. So yeah, I just think that everybody should be appreciated, and also to Christina for those like late nights, because I know most times she actually like goes beyond the time that maybe she has to sleep or whatever. But yeah, I really like thank everybody for doing an awesome job this week.
Thank you very much, Terry. Peter.
Yeah, so I've not been there the last week, but I think I want to extend kudos to Godfrey. I think she's doing a lot, and with the code reviews and weekly things, and also helping out with the questions in the chat. I think it's very awesome to work with you, and also kudos to the teams, the mentees. I see from this week, like there's a lot of improvement with the pull request reviews, with the code reviews, and also how you collaborate together to ask questions, and interesting also to hear that, as especially from Terry and Christina, being able to, while you work, I mean, maybe you work long hours, but being able to put in breaks in between your long hours of coding or debugging. That is really amazing, because most times for most people, they just debug without breaks, and maybe one other party is tired and want to take a break, but not sure how to say it. But for the both of you to be able to pull it through, I think that's quite awesome. So well done.
Thank you very much, Peter. And so what went well this week, the past 2 weeks? So team improved with the code review process and improved their coding skills and debugging since the beginning. I mean, I've seen a lot of progress compared to the first week now. And the communication also improved now that people have gotten to know everybody better and they've worked with everybody. So everybody has worked with everybody, you got more comfortable, and things move along much better. Next is Christina.
Yeah, actually, what you just said is true. So I would like to point that out, because it's the second time that I work with Terry, and I think it has been even much nicer. So the team collaboration and the pair programming was super nice, even if we stay late at nights and we were both tired, and then there were moments where we were stuck and we decided just to take a break, go for a walk. But it has been very nice. I think we, despite going through these struggles, we managed to keep trying and testing, and yeah, in the end we could figure it out. So thank you, Terry, also for your patience and for always being there, and having this nice time on collaborating together.
Okay, thank you very much, Christina. And next is Terry.
So what went well? So I would like to I don't even know how Christina does it, but she did a wonderful job this week. And because I was already like tired of doing the time elapsed code and everything. So I just like, when she called me up and told me that, oh, we should have a meeting, I was like, wow, how did you figure it out? That is a special like way to actually like thank your teammate, that even though you may not actually like know the method or what to do, but everybody's input is valid. So yeah, I think that should actually like be appreciated every time.
Thank you very much, Terry. And I also remembered something I want to say, that it's really great that you communicated today in the weekly that, you know what, you couldn't fulfill something for the disable checkbox. And this, with more experience and as you get better, you are able to realize beforehand when you can't complete something, and you let the team know even earlier. So you tell a few days before to the team that I can't fulfill something, I will need more time. And then everybody can decide to maybe extend the deadline, cut the scope. And this is, I think it's one of the most important skills to be able as a developer to estimate. It's very difficult to be able to estimate if you will complete some work on time or not. So it's really great that you communicated this. And about the people working together in teams, it's totally normal. Like when you get a team together to do some work, you can't expect them to be perfect from the very beginning. They always need some time to adapt. So this is also normal. So what could be improved? For me, I wrote two things: that the code review process can become even smoother, and as also Debbie said, and one acceptance criteria from the issues wasn't fulfilled. And as I said, maybe this is nice if it's communicated a bit earlier if possible, but I think maybe this wasn't so clear from the beginning with the checkbox. So yep, and mostly I added this here so we don't forget it, the what could be improved. Next is Chris.
Yeah, related actually with my comment, I actually forgot to say thank you to Debbie. First of all, like so Terry and I started to work on our issue anyway, but we got a bit delayed because there was some merging conflicts last week. And that's why I wanted to thank Debbie, because she also took some time to go with us through both PRs and check which files were having those conflicts, and she actually made the changes for us, so thank you for that. And yeah, I think this is one thing that we could or we should pay attention on, especially for this week, whenever we merge again the PRs, that we make sure that everything is fine, and that yeah, especially because in this week we have been working on the same file, so we really need to pay attention to that.
Thank you, Christina. Next, Terry.
So for me, I think that so everybody, Christina, Debbie, and Tori, we should actually like not touch the code base on the main branch, because touching it can actually like cause major conflict or one thing or the other, because it's not like appropriate for an organization or like employee should actually like be touching the main branch, because it can actually like affect what is on production and everything. So yeah, I think that's just what I have to say. So next time, nobody touch the main code base. Just focus on your branch and see how we can work together better. Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more what you mean by touching the main branch? Because I think the way you do it.
So for
Pardon?
me, so the thing is, I know sometimes we may actually like make a mistake. Maybe for me, I can just maybe go on the main branch and just maybe type something and forget to create a new branch for my new task for the week. So that's what I actually like mean. Not necessarily like touching everything and breaking it, but just always remember that you have to always branch out to work on your branch for the new week. So not like adding new code and not forgetting that you actually like done something. So when you merge it, maybe when you merge on that team's branch to the main branch, it may actually like cause one or two things to happen. Yeah, that's what I just mean.
Terry, that's an amazing observation, what you said, and it's great that you realized that you did this and it's not so good. And as you said, yep, you shouldn't go put stuff directly in the main branch. And it's even better if you want to fix something, you make a branch, you ask somebody to review it, and you notify the rest of the team that, folks, I did a change there because I realized something was wrong. I just wanted to make you aware. Or then somebody can tell you, you know what, please don't add it yet because I am doing some work on that. I'm doing some work on that file. And you just need to coordinate, because as you said, maybe sometimes we forget that we work in a team and we think we work alone. But a really great observation. And I think Debbie already read this when she read the first column, that we should get asked for code reviews faster, and the Collab is among them. And about action items, I just added one so we don't forget that the team that didn't fulfill the acceptance criteria should create an issue for the missing criteria so it can be fixed in the future. And it doesn't need to be fixed by the same people. So in the next weeks, whenever somebody has some time, they can fix this. And I don't know, does anybody else have to add or want something to add?
I'm not exactly sure what were the PR merge mistake, but probably you want to, or the team wants to pick out an action item for the merge mistakes, but maybe also explain a bit what happened. I wasn't here, not sure what happened.
The thing is that there was, so when we merged the PR, there was one part of the code that suddenly got removed because both teams work in the same file. So when this branch got merged, it removed the one of the parts that the other team fixed from the previous task. And yeah, then we fixed everything directly on the main branch. It got fixed, but it took us a while to figure out because on the next day we were testing the task that we solved, and then we realized, oh, but it's not working. And yeah, it was because of the merge.
So do you want to come up with, do you have any action item you think would help you solve that? Or
I think this has been
Well, actually,
solved.
also you mentioned before that because this week it has been the same, that we have worked in the same files, both teams, that we should pay attention now before merging again, right?
Yep, so I can add this item that when you want to merge, when this week's merge happens, one of the teams should merge their branch first. And then when the second team wants to, and then when the second team wants to merge, they should collaborate with someone from the other team. I think this is the best, so both people who try to merge know what's going on and nobody overwrites each other work, and of course that you thoroughly test it. So when you fix the merge conflicts, you test it a lot to see that everything's working okay from both sides. So not just that one team's issue is working, also both of the team's issues are still working.
So I think when one PR pull request is merged and you pull in changes from the other, from the latest changes to the main branch, you should also request for another review if it has been approved before from the other team, so that they can confirm that all your code changes, or that the merge conflicts you fixed or resolved are actually correct. That way you can also avoid that while you also test both features.
Yep, and this should be the first task, so you shouldn't start working on the new issues unless you are sure that everything is merged correctly. Once everything is merged correctly, then you can start working on the new issues.
So in this case, which team should merge first? The
think
one that have I don't know, has much more, has written much more code, or it doesn't matter? Like,
I mean,
how do we do?
I think my first thought would be that it makes sense for the team that has more code, but I'm not sure entirely if this would help or not. I don't know if Peter has a better and more organized approach.
I think whichever pull request is ready first can go first. I think the important thing is more about understanding how to resolve merge conflict. So when you are picking changes, you should be sure to pick the right changes from the conflicts that you can observe. Then after the whole resolution, you can always compare what you are changing from the Git diff. On GitHub, you see the diff and you check to be sure that what you are removing or what you are adding, you are not deleting the other person's recently added work, because you could also see their changes from the merge pull request and you can see what you have. So I think it doesn't matter if it's big code or small code. It's just which understanding how to resolve the changes.
Yep. And thank you very much. And if you are super confused with the merge conflicts and can't figure out what to do, please ask us for help.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, so I stop sharing. And thank you very much for coming to this week's weekly. I see that this week Patrick is responsible for office hours and code reviews, so he will probably send you a time in Slack and a date. And I will stop recording.